Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Email Verify and Website Info Scraper. In this training, I'm going to show you how you can verify a list of emails and get all kinds of information from emails, and I'm going to show you how you can automatically get information from a website with a click of a button. It's going to be an epic training. I'm going to go step by step, every line of code. I can't wait. Let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got a really fantastic training. Today, we are going to show you how to verify emails. If you've got a list of emails and you need them verified, why would we want to verify an email? Well, often we have lists of emails that get old or outdated, or we get provided incorrect emails or improper formats, and we need to verify them to make sure that they're right before we go ahead and send them out, or we send them to our email company to send out. It costs us a lot of money to have that, and so to have a list of verified emails can be really fantastic and very helpful to us. Also save us a lot of time and a lot of money. So I'm going to show you how to do that for free today. I'm also going to show you how to automatically get information from a website with just a click of a button. If you've got a list of websites, we can get the title, description, country, postal, even if a phone or email if they're available on the website. We're going to do that with just a few APIs and a few really cool tricks. So it's going to be a really great training. You can get this application for absolutely free. All you need to do is click on the links down below. I'll provide them for your email and for your Facebook Messenger. Both are available. If you would like, of course, over 175 of them plus a little bonus, I've got that for you available in our 175 workbook pack. That is going to include all 175 workbooks for just $66. That also includes a single click library. That means single click, you can open up the application, single click, you can get to the YouTube video to watch the training. It's a really convenient and top seller. I think you'll really love that. If you like these trainings, it would be great if you could pick this up. Also, if you could just subscribe, that would really help us out. Just a few things. Subscribing will ensure that you get this notification email through your email when you subscribe and notify. That'll ensure that you get, when I have these new videos each and every Tuesday, make sure you get notified of that, because I do create these for you and I just wanted you to be alerted. Also, feel free to comment and like. All right, let's get started. We've got a lot to cover. So what are we going to do today? Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over a list of emails, and we're going to get if it's a correct format. I want to know if there's an SMTP, some DNS. I'll explain that to you. If it's a free, like Gmail is a free, so we want to know if it's a free email or not. Free would be like Gmail and other free email providers to help us. There used to be a lot of other ones. And also, is it a disposable email? This could really help us. If it's disposable, we may not want to send to it. We're going to use a webhook. We're going to use an API key for that. Inside the websites, what I want to do is I want to have a list of websites here. Then I want to get the title, a description of the website, the country, a postal address if it's available, phone and email if they're available. They're often not available because of spam, but sometimes they're available. So we'll keep that in mind. We can put that. But I'm going to show you how to get all kinds of information. You can put whatever in you want. So how are we going to do all this? Well, we're going to start out with a really cool API, and it's going to be called Whois.API. That's this one right here called Whois.XML.API. And I'll include the links down below. In fact, I've included links in the workbook here for the Whois, and we're going to be using Integromat. So it's going to be really great. We're going to use those two tools, and I'm going to show you how to use them interchangeably. So what is Whois.XML.API? It's a really cool API, and you can get a lot of free ones. You can do up to 1,000 emails for free every single month. So really, really cool. So all you need to do is just go ahead and I'll go ahead and log out of here so we get to see what it looks like when you're logged out. It's absolutely free to sign up. They do have higher tiers where if you want more websites or more emails, you get a lot though. You get like 1,000 for free. I'll go over the limits of those for the free account. So I've already logged in here. I've created an account, but you'll just want to log in. So if you don't have an account, you just sign up for free. Just click sign up and put in your information here, and it'll bring you to the sign up. So just enter your email, password, a company name, and your position if you want. So all right, once you get logged in, you'll need to verify that through your email. We'll go ahead and log in now, and I just want to show you what's available available in this. Really cool. There's actually so many different. We're only going to cover a few today, but they have 𝐻𝐻 is. You can get the 𝐻𝐻 is if you provide your current historical ownership information of domains. So you can get the history of a domain, DNS history of a DNS. You can do IP or geolocation, get detailed context. So in other words, if you submit an IP address, it'll return back the location, which is can be really helpful. Domain research. We've got a lot. Domain, subdomains, email verification. We're going to be using that. I'm going to right click that and open up that in a new tab. And so we've got reverse subdomain lookup, 𝐻𝐻 is information. So you can look all this stuff up. It's really cool. And I'm going to use website context. So I'm going to use, these are the two that I'm going to use today. So email verification. So basically, what is that? When I enter an email address here, let's go ahead and enter my email address here and just click look up. And basically what it's going to do is going to give us a bunch of information here. So I've looked up my email and you see you've got some information. SMTP check doesn't always actually return exactly. So it doesn't have a target SMT, but that just means it's hidden, it's protected. But it's a valid email address. It says the email address has passed the DNS. It is a paid, meaning because it's Excel for free. I've got my own domain. It's not a Gmail account, so it would show the difference. It's not a disposable and doesn't have a catch-all address, right? A catch-all would be something like if you're sending it to another address and then you forward it over, so one specific email that catches all. So that could be, you may not want to send commercial emails to a catch-all, so it's good if you know that. So what does it really look like? Let's see what the return. So this is what it looks like in a nice format, but what does it look like? What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the return, and I'm going to go back into Excel here. I'm going to drop this down here a little bit just so we can see what it looks like, the return. It's going to be in JSON format. So it looks like this. We've got the email address and our SMT DNS check. So basically my idea is I want to take some of these or all of these, whatever you want, however many you would like. I want to bring them into our table here, format, SMT, DNS, free, and disposable. So that's what I really want to do. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to check that, and I'll show you exactly how to do that, and we're going to show you how to parse this really easily. You can do this with macros, but they're kind of complicated, so I've got an easy way to show you how to do that. Okay, so basically we want to get that information into the table, all right? So what else do we want? I also want the website. Let's delete that. We don't need that. I also want the website information. So let's go back in here. And I also want to get the contact information for websites. Sometimes it's really nice if the website is showing some contact information. We can get detailed web context for a given domain. If the contact, many have their available contact. So let's just take a look. So if I put in my contact website here, it's just on auto hotkey. That's why I've got it automatic. I'm going to look it up here. And okay, also what we want to do is notice it says CNN. It'll work HTTP, but generally what you want to do is really only want to put in this part or only basically this, just the website. So we'll just focus on this because it's easier when we pass it. So this will work without the www HTTP. We don't need that. Just this part is fine. Okay, again, so it's going to return the title, and our description here. And then I'm also going to copy it. We can download it, but I don't need to download it. I just want to copy it so I can show you what it looks like and then how we're going to get it into the table. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to paste that in there, and I'm going to bring it down. Okay, so we've got a company name. There's no company name. A country code. It could show up possibly if we have it there. And emails, if there's any emails. We've got a description. We've got a title. And then if there's any phone numbers or postal address or social links, it would show up here. And so that's really helpful. So we can bring all that information, if it's available on the website, and bring it inside our table. So we're going to do just that as well. So let's go ahead and do that now. So how are we going to do that? We'll get out of there. Okay, so we've got email. So the websites I'm going to bring in here. I'm going to bring the title, description, email. And I guess we have to do that with some web hooks, right? And we also need an API key, right? So once you sign up to this website, it's going to create a API key for you automatically. So let's take a look in some of the solutions. We've got products here. We've got APIs. In the products, we've got APIs. So there's all those APIs, right? So I just want to focus on the two APIs, which are the email verification API. So I'm going to right click and open up that in a new tab. I want to look at this API. This is the API that I want. So when you see, again, you see here, and you see the email here, you can put your email address in here. So it's got format true, decode format. So it's all here, everything you've got here. So how do we get that API? All we need to do is just click get started. Get started once we do that. And then we've got a brand new API here. So all we need to do is copy this. It's kind of the framework. We're going to take this apart a little bit, but I want to show you everything in there. So I'm going to copy that here. And then I'm going to bring that into Excel. I'm just going to paste it anywhere around here. Okay, let's paste it in this field here. and then we'll take it apart here a little bit. I'll bring it down here so we can see it. So what is that? First of all, we have email verification, who is XML API v1. So we're going to need that, and I also need the API key. Now you can submit this all, and then of course we need email address support at email. So basically this part, email address, this is where our emails are going to go. So instead of the email here, we're going to replace it with the emails. We're going to loop through the emails, and we're going to send it each time to the email address here. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start here, 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 all the way to the last row. And so then what we're going to do is I'd like to have this API key separate, just because it's kind of a nice thing. And then what we'll do, so I'm going to separate this API key. So it's right here, API key. So this is the API key right here. I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to place it right in here. That way, when I send it to you and it's blank, it won't work. It'll check. It's kind of a way to check for it, right? So all we need to do is just, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to keep this, I'm going to put this in our code here. I'm going to put this in our code, and then I'm going to use a variable for this. Then I'm going to use this inside our code. I'm going to use this as, inside a string. Then I'm going to use this as a variable. The variable is going to change as we loop through the emails here. So that's basically it. And we're going to do the same thing, and the webhook will come in just a moment. So we have that. I'm going to keep this here, this link right here. And I'm going to do the same thing. Since we're already on the topic, I'm going to do the same thing for our websites. We need to provide the websites, right? I said website contacts, right? So we want the email. So I'm going to right click, open up that in a new tab. Got a lot of tabs. We won't need them after this. So website contacts is here. We got the same thing. And again, I'm just going to, you can also put in a website here to see it. So if you put in CNN, you get kind of a country code, information, description, kind of like, it's really nice here. So I'm going to get started, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. Once I click the get started, I'm going to, again, we've got it. It's pretty much, now keep in mind the API key is actually the same. That goes per account. And it's okay. You can see my API key because I'll be deleting this account after the training. There's no need to keep it. But so no problem. There's nothing secure about this. It's no big deal. So, but it's free and easy to create your own. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to bring that into the website. Okay, so now we've got a sheet called websites. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to paste it anywhere around here just so we can take it apart and take a look at it. Again, the API key is exactly the same as it was before. There's no different. I'm just using it as a nice example. But generally, you have the same API key. So I'm going to copy that API key. I'm going to place it here. It's the same one as before, no different. Okay, so it ends at LJE right here. Just make sure that we've got the same format. LJE here, same one. Okay, so we also, but however, keep in mind that this link is different. Remember, this is focused on website contacts, where this one is focused on here, tab over email verification. So the main link is different, right? The API key is the same. And of course, here we're focused on an email address, who is, and then the website itself, that one, we're going to look at this API key, and then we have domain name here. And don't forget this and sign, and the domain name equals, and then CNN. So this part is going to be the dynamic part. We're going to loop through all of our websites here and then extract the information and place it right here. So great. So we understand that. So all right, good. So let's take a look. But one of the things is that this is not a very friendly data. Let's take a look at some of that data. The data info, the output format is not very familiar. If we see that, it looks like this, right? So it's not really helpful. What I really like to do is make it easy for us to parse this data. So basically I can get all this in Excel, but I really don't want it looking like this. We can get it in JSON or XML format. Either one is not going to really be helpful. We could use macros to parse it, but I have an even better way using integramat. So let's do that using integramat, okay? We can actually close some of these now. We don't need these. We'll keep this one open, we'll keep this one open and this one open in case we want to look at it, but that's all we want. We're just going to be focused on these two requests. And then so what I want to do, the idea is I want to just extract only some information. So I'm going to take this information that we saw here, this output information, I'm going to bring it into integramat, and we'll show you what integramat is. If you have never heard of it, don't worry about it. Basically, it's going to help us take and decode this or parse this JSON file, and we'll be able to extract just the fields that we want. We'll be able to parse them however we like. So it's a really nice way. We'll put the data in a really nice and pretty way, and then we'll get it out. So that's what we're going to do inside integramat. But let's write the code at least to extract this information into Excel, and then we'll send it. So the first part is I want to send the link and then get this information into Excel. So how are we going to do that? We're going to do that with a macro. So let's write that macro now, okay? So if you want to go into the macros, I've got the screen set up because the screens are pretty much basic. There's not much going on here, so we don't need to show how we're going to set those screens up. So let's go ahead and write the macro. I'm going to go into the developers section. If you don't have this developers tab, all you need to do is click on the file, options here, and then go to the customize ribbon and make sure you've got developers selected. A shortcut to get you there was Alt F11. Take a look at that. Alt F11, that's a shortcut to get you into that. So basically we're just focused on two sheets, emails and websites. That's all we're going to focus on. There's no sheet 3, so we don't need to worry about that. In fact, I can just delete it here so that we don't need to focus on that. Okay, we'll delete sheet 3. Okay, so just these two sheets, emails and websites. And I'm going to create a module, so I'm going to click Insert Module here. And this module, we can rename it if we want, but I'll use both. Let's call this email data, and then so we can create two different modules, that's fine. And then we'll do one for website data. So get email, website data, we can insert module, again, and we'll call this website data. That way we keep them separate, website data. Okay, so we've got information. So for the email data, what do I want to do? Well, what I really want to do, in fact, we could probably put them both. If we put both of these macros are going to be so similar, maybe we'll just put them. If you want to remove a module, just click remove. We don't want to save it. So we'll do both. Because they're so similar, we can use the same variables, email, website, data. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Why that's nice, hopefully I can dimension variables, right, that are similar to both or the same for both. So let's do that right now. Let's start dimensioning some of those variables that we're going to need. So we're going to dimension, since we're making a call, an HTTP call, we need to dimension the object. Object, we'll call it object, and then HTTP, let's do HTTP as an object. Okay, we'll do a late binding for that, so I'll show you what that is. Then I also need some string variables. So dimension, and these are going to be helpful for both. Dimension email as a string, so we need to get that into a variable. Also the domain as a string, because we need to run through the domains. And then also I want a JSON response. What we're going to do is going to get that response from, remember that response that you saw, that JSON, and then we're going to send it to Integromat. Integromat's going to help parse it, and I'll walk you through that when we get to that point. JSON, and just call this JSON response as a string. That's going to be also a string. Okay, so great. So now I want a string response as a string, because I want to put that into an actual string, which you're going to need that. So I'll just call it string response, and I'll go through and explain to these what these are as a string. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have to parse it once it gets into Excel, and we're going to use an array for that. So we're going to call that results as an array. So since that's going to be array, we'll put those around it as a string, okay, because it's going to be a variable. Okay, also want to say I also need more things like webhook. So we're going to mention the webhook as a string, because we're going to use that in Integromat. I'll show you what that's all about. And then also URL, we're creating a URL as a string for both macros, URL as a string, both because we need to create that into a full URL. And then also JSON is a string. JSON is what we're going to be sending the format, and it's going to be a string. That's what we get sent in order to get back the information. And then also remember we have API keys, so API key, that's that same API key that we use for both websites and email. That's a string as a string. Okay, that's it for our string. Now let's see, we want to start looping for websites and email. So we're going to mention the email row as long. It's going to be a whole number long email, because we're going to be looping through the rows. And I also we're going to be looping through some columns too. So email column as long. And I also need to know the last email row. If we're going to be looping, we need to know the last one as long. So I wanted to mention more. So I also want to do the site row for websites, site row as long. I know the site column, right? We're looping through the same thing as long, and I'll show you why we're going to be looping through that. And I also need the last site, that's website, row as long, okay, because we're going to be doing it for the websites. Okay, very good. And then I also I need the response item as long. Also, let's do that long, and then response item, because we need to loop through those as long, because we're going to get responses. Let's say we get 5 responses back for a different part. We need to loop through all the responses, and I'll explain that. Great, so that's pretty much it for our dimensions. So what we're going to do is I'm going to write a subroutine here, sub check email addresses. Okay, so what do we want to do? The first thing what I want to do is I want to set the object for the, I want to create an object because that is what we're going to be sending via HTTP. So let's do that right now. Set, because it's already dimensioned as an object, but now this is the late binding, we need to set that. What is that object? HTTP is going to equal, we're creating that object, create object. And what type of object are we creating? We're going to create an XML2 object. So let's write that in. Create object XML2 dot server XML HTTP. Okay, so that's what it is. Again, it's XML2 dot server XML HTTP. That's going to allow us to send that information out and then get some information back in. So again, we're focused on the emails. Now keep in mind that I've changed this sheet 1. Before it was sheet 1, I've changed it to emails, and I did that simply by changing the properties here, the worksheet properties here, to emails. I've done the same thing with websites. So now we can focus just on that. So with emails, and if you don't know if you got the sheet name right, let's say I got it wrong and I just put dot, nothing's going to happen, right? But when I get it right, I push dot, you're going to see this automatically show up, this pop up here, this auto sense here is going to come up, and that's how we know we've got it right. Okay, so with emails, we're focused on that sheet here. What do we want to do? The first thing I need to make sure is that we got the requirements here. Okay, I want to make sure we have a webhook and we have an API key. Both of those are required. We don't have a webhook yet, but I'm going to show you one before we run this macro. So I want to make sure that I4 and I5 have values or are not empty. If they are empty, we need to let the user know to please fill those in. I4, I5. So let's do that right now. And that way you won't have errors when you get it. If dot range, because when I send it to you, it's going to be blank, right? When you download this, it's going to be because you're going to go in and get your own. And of course, I'll show you how to do it. If I4 dot value equals empty or dot range, and I use auto hotkey to automate this. You see how it automates? Auto hotkey is a free software. Just look it up on Google. You can automate typing, and I do that to make it quicker. So an I5 equals empty, then message box, please make sure to enter a webhook and an API key okay, because both of those are required. Exit sub, nothing we can do unless we actually have those values, and we'll put those in before running the macro. So now that we have that, what I want to do is I want to determine what is the webhook. The webhook is going to be located in I4. So we can just copy this here. We've already typed it in, and we'll call it webhook. We've already defined webhook as a string, webhook. So we've got that equals and then I4. Okay, that's called the webhook. It's relative, it's self-explanatory based on the variable we assigned. Okay, also want to put in the API key. API key we've already also defined as a variable string, so we can put that in, and that's going to be I5 here. So make sure you get the equal sign in here, and that is our API key. That's called, we'll just call it who is. Call this who is API key. Okay. That's good enough. All right, so we've got those variables assigned. Perfect. Now what I want to do is I want to know the last row of the email. We're going to use this. I'm going to use column B to get the last row because I'm going to start at 4 and I want to go all the way to the last row, which is in 6 in this case. But I need to get that and put that into a variable. So how can I do that? So I've already got the last email row right here as long. So all I need to do again is put that into a variable and a number. And what is that? I'm going to put that in equals, and then again, so I'm going to use that auto hotkey. That was really fast because I used auto hotkey, but basically all that is column B, right? We're using column B. I want to know in case there's a missing name. So we're going to use column B, which is going to be required, and that's it. So end XL up, it's going to get us the last row of the variable within that column. That is the last email row. Okay, now that we have that, we want to make sure that we actually have data in there. So let's just run and check, because if that last row is less than 4, that means we have no data. If the last email row is less than 4, then exit sub, right? Nothing we can do if we don't actually have emails in there. I want to make sure it wouldn't run on a blank. Okay, but assuming that we do have emails, we can now move on. So what I want to do is I want to clear any of the contents. I want to clear anything that was there before. Since we're going to loop it out, I want to clear it all out. So C4 all the way through G, and the last row, just a long number, a large number will be fine. So dot range C4 through G, and then we'll just do 999, not value, but I want to clear the contents. Clear contents. Clear previous values. So now that we've cleared it out, now we can run our loop. And basically what I want to do is I want to run a loop from 4, starting at 4, all the way to the last row. But we're just going to do it in the first row to start out. So here's what I'm going to do. For email row equals 4 to the last email row. And then we want to close our loop. Next email row. Okay, like that. Okay, but really I don't want to go to the last one just yet. Not yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do 4 to 4. In other words, I only want it to run on the first row just to start it out, just to try it out. Once we know everything's working, then we can then we'll get rid of this. So right now it's going to go just to 1 row, and that's fine for us to start it. So what do I want to do once we're in that? I want to assign the email to a variable. Remember, we've got this email string right here, email as a string. So what I want to do is I want to take that and assign it to a variable. It's going to be in column B in whatever row we're on. So here we can do that. Email equals, right, dot range, and then of course it's focused on B, column B, and what? And the email row. That's our email address. Email address. So now that we have the email address, we can then continue on, and we're ready. We're going to put in our URL now. So what is our URL? URL is also a string variable. Equals, and then what we want to do is I want to know what that whole email is. I want to put in this. I'm going to skip the API key because that's going to be a value. So I'm going to do all the way up to the API. It's going to be here. This is what I want right here. Email verification, who is, that's what we got from the website, API version key, and then the rest will just do that. So I'm going to copy that, because the reason I'm putting this in and not the API key, because you're going to put in your own API key when you get this, okay? So you don't have to mess with the code. So the URL here, right, I'm going to that's part API key and what? And the API key. And what else? Well, let's take a look at our sample here. We see we've got the API key. What's next? And, right, email address equals. So we want to put that in. So I'm going to copy that because that's what we got to put in next. Okay, escape out of there. Go in here. So and, don't forget the and sign. And what else? And email address equals, right? So then the next thing would be the email address. So email, right? We've got that already written here, email here. So that's it, email address and email. Okay, great. So now that we have that, we've got our full URL. This is what we're going to send to the _who_is, and that's what's going to allow us to get the information from that email. So now that we have that, we just need to set up a few things in order to send that. So with our object HTTP, so let's write that in. Object HTTP, and I'm going to copy this because I have to rewrite it a few times. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. Object HTTP.open, right? We're opening it now, and I want to put in the get. We're going to use a get statement here. So open equals, and then get, what are we getting? URL, and then false. Put that in. Okay, actually not this email here. We don't need that. So we got it right. So object open get HTTP. All right, URL. False. Next up, what we want to do is I want to request the header. So how are we going to do that? So again, start out with object. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to set the request header. So set request header, and then what's called content type. Okay, content. We want the content type is, what kind is it? It's called application JSON. That's the type we want. Application JSON. That's the type we're sending. Excellent. Now we're ready to send it. So how are we going to send it? We're going to do object.send. Okay, we're going to send it. What are we sending? We're sending the JSON. Okay, JSON. That's what we defined already here. JSON. We're sending that JSON, and that's going to send the information. So once it's sent there, we're going to ready to get a response back. Okay, and what would that response be? It's going to be, we'll call that the JSON response. JSON response. We've already defined that as a string variable. So JSON response is going to equal to object. Again, object HTTP. In this case, the object HTTP is called response text. Response text. Okay. Okay, good. Now I want to stop there, and I want to put that into a message box so we can say message box JSON response. Okay, so that's going to put our JSON response inside a message box. So that's all I want to do. But the only thing is I want to put something temporarily in here before I run the variable. So I'm just going to put in test. We don't need it now. We're going to add it, but I want to get the response. I want to see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and save our work, check for any bugs, and then remember, it's only going to loop through the first row. That's all I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this here. Then we're going to get our response. Okay, that's what I want. So you see it's kind of a big mess of code, right? So we've got email address here, format check true, SMT check true, DNS true, free check true. Okay, so we're going through all that's free because it's a Gmail, disposable, true, and all that. Okay, so we've got all this information. And now what I want to do is I want to take all this information and I want to put it in a nice clean format. And I want to parse it all. I want to get rid of what we don't need and parse it. So now we can write a macro to do that, but it's quite complicated. So why don't we just put it through our friend Integromat? And I'm going to show you how to do that. Integromat's a great site. So basically we're going to take this information, parse it, get it all cleaned up, and bring back only what we want to bring, not everything, because we're not using all that data. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use Integromat, and let's go over that to get it now that we've gotten the step. And if you have never used Integromat, it's a really cool. We've been using it a lot. It's basically an automation. There's tons and tons of automations in it. If you look at some of the scenarios that you can create, it's just incredible. So if we create a scenario, it's like an automation. We can use any of these types. I mean, there's just, I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot. So basically it allows a trigger, and then you can create multiple actions, and people create really amazing. There's a Facebook group on this too. It's really cool. So we've got tons. We're going to be using it simple, but Integromat's going to allow us to do that. So what are we going to do? So it's a free account. Just sign up, and you get about 1,000 a month, and then there's some limitations, but it works great. The free account should be just fine for our purposes, okay? Unless you're doing a whole lot of them. If you have a whole lot, then you'll want to get a paid account. But for our purposes, it's fine. So what are we going to use inside this? What I want to use is just really two things. We're going to use a webhook that's going to allow us to send information to. So I'm going to type in webhook, and I want to click that. And I want to use something called a JSON parser. So I'm going to type in JSON, and it's called this. It's going to allow us to parse that and help separate that code and make it look really good. So I'm going to continue on that. Okay. All right. So the first thing what I want to do is I want to give it a name. So let's just call this email. Let's call this email verifier. Okay. So we have that. And then now what I want to do is I want to first thing add a webhook. So I'm going to click here, or just click here actually, and click on webhooks. So I want to create a custom webhook. So clicking on there, and that's going to give us a webhook. We can zoom in, we can zoom out, we can do lots of things. So what I'm going to add a new webhook. So I'm going to click add, and it's give us a name. We'll just call this email verify. Okay, and you can give it any name you want. It doesn't matter. Save, and what that's going to do is assign us a webhook. This is your webhook right here. So what I want to do is I want to copy that address. So I'm going to click copy to the clipboard. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that inside here, right inside our webhook. So I'm going to, instead of this test, I'm just going to paste it in here. Now we have our webhook, okay? So that's going to help us out. So let's continue with the code. I'm going to save it here, and we'll go step by step in there. So first thing I want to do is I want to be able to send the webhook. So we don't need this message box anymore. But instead what we want to do is we want to send that information I want to send that JSON response to Integromat so that Integromat can help us translate that into something that's more clear and remove all those unnecessary characters and just basically parse the text in a readable manner. So how are we going to do that? So the first thing what I want to do is I want to get a URL. I want to redefine that URL. So I'm going to do this. URL is going to be equal to the webhook. Remember, now we've defined the webhook in I4, right? So it's already here into I4. We already have it into a variable since we've already defined it here. So URL is going to equal webhook. And what else beyond the webhook do we need? Well, we need more than that. I want to send the email. I want to send all that JSON response. So it's going to be the webhook. Let's spell that right. And then quotation marks, I want to put in the question mark. That's going to end that URL. Let us know that that's the end of the URL. And then next up, what I want to do is I want to type in just a string JSON because so we know what it is, what's coming in, it's clear. And then I want to put the variable. The variable is that JSON response. Is this thing right here, and I want to send. This is what I want to send to them. So and the JSON response. So I'm sending that. This is just simply the name that we've assigned. That way, once it comes inside Integromat, we'll be able to recognize it because we've given it this label. You could give it any label as long as you recognize it. So all we're doing is sending that webhook, making sure we add the question mark, and then starts beginning of the data. So we could send additional data if we want, but that is enough. So that's all we need to send. Okay, so again, let's go ahead and continue down. All we need to do is pretty much copy this and just go ahead and paste it in again because that's all we're going to be doing. Again, putting it down here. Now we continue on. So it's going to be the same information. We're going to get URL and do all that stuff. In fact, let's go ahead and use post this. Post. I'm going to change this to post. I think that works a little bit better with Integromat. So we're using post in this case. Great. So now what I want to do is I want to actually send this to Intercommand. So I'm going to run this and I'm going to send it to Intercommand. Now I'll go back in here and you see it's successfully determined because I just sent it. So that means it got information. So we're going to click OK. We want to make sure that it got, that means it reached the information, reached Intercommand. So let's click OK and we're going to click on here and see, so it got everything good. So what do I want to do now? Again, now all I want to do is parse that into something readable. So we're going to click on this JSON here and I want to click parse JSON. Remember, that's what I'm doing, parsing JSON. So I'm going to click here, parse it. And then we have a data structure. So let's click add and we'll create a new one. We'll just call it email data. Okay, that's enough for this. And then we can click a specification. If we click specification, we can just click any specification here. So, but it's basically what we want to do is just add it. Let's call this email data again. Here and then click add and then just text is fine. But when you see this here, type text, let's edit that. Let's not put text. Let's put an array. I want an array on that. Okay. Email data type is array. Okay. Type here is text. Array item specifications is type here. Okay. We can do array here. So now we have all this. Just keep going. And that's enough here. So save it. Okay. We know it's going to be array and save it again. And then what do we want coming in, right? What do we want parsed? We only have one thing. Remember that label I told you we assigned, JSON? That's it right here. All I need to do is just drag it over or clicking it once and click OK. So what that's going to do is going to parse it. Let's do it. Transform to not be the last module. It's not the last one. That's okay. We've got one more to add to it. So now we've got the information, but now I need to bring it back into Excel. So I'm going to click here, add another module. But this time, what do I want? A webhook, but I want a webhook response. So click on webhook. Webhook response. That's what I want. Now, what do I want inside that response? This is what is Excel's going to get inside its response. But what do I want? I want, again, here, we've got email data here, but there's no really data here. We haven't sent it yet, so that's okay. So let's click, we'll just click here for now, click on anything here and click OK, but we're going to need to change that. But we have to send some information, right? We have to actually send it. So we can save our work that we've done so far on here. That's a good idea to save it. What I'm going to click is run once. Once it's running, it's waiting for us. So since it's waiting, we're going to go back into the macro and we're going to send that information here. We'll go back in here and we keep an eye on here and we watch this and now it's going and good. Okay, so let's take a look at all of this and see exactly what happened. So we output. Now we've sent them all this information. Here's this JSON file. Remember, it all looks like this. Forget this translate, but this is a really cool plugin for translate. Okay, so it sent all this information, right, in this format, which we don't want the format. Take a look in here. It got the format, right? And now it's got a format. And if we look in here, it's now it's here's the input, right? Here's what came in. And here's what came out. It's a nice and organized manner. And that's what we want, nice and organized. Okay, so now we've got that, but now we need to get it into Excel. So how are we going to do that? Now here's the part that we're going to, we can clear this out. This was only temporary. We don't need that anymore. So what do we want in there? So what do I want? Let's take a look at what we want. Let's go back into Excel. We want I want 5 things here. I want the format, SMTP, DNS, free and disposable. Format, SMTP, DNS, free and disposable. So let's put those 5 fields inside from Intercommand. So again, we're going to put them in here. So again, there are format. I want to click on here and I want to put a separator. I want to separate those. So I'm going to use a comma. Okay. And then again, what's next on Excel? SMTP. So let's put that in SMTP. Clicking on it, another comma. Next one, of course, is the DNS. So we're going to put DNS check here, comma. And then next one, of course, free and then disposable. So whether it's free, clicking here, comma, and then disposable, comma. So that's all we want. So we want to separate those by commas. That's important. Click OK. All right, let's just double check again, make sure it's here just the way we like it. Okay. And then again, what we're going to do is before I click run once, we can close this out. Okay, so before I click run once, what I want to do is I want to take that. Now, we've sent it all, but we need to get it back, right? We need to get the information back into Excel. So we're going to do that right now. So I'm going to write some code to get that response, and it's going to look something like this. Remember, we have another string variable called string response. We're going to use that here. This is the one that I would like to use right now. str response. So I'm going to copy this one here because that's the one I want to use down below, and that's the one we're going to get a different response. So this one, we're going to use the same type of response that we used here. We got this object response text. So that's going to get us our response. Same type of response, but in different variable we have. But now the response is going to be that formatted, that with a comma delimited information, the only 5 fields that we want. Now we're going to get it into a string variable. But I don't want it to stay in a string variable. I want to put it into an array, because an array is going to allow us to actually put it inside, these 5 spots right here inside the row. But let's take a look. I just want to run it once and take a look. So again, message box string response, okay? And take a look at what that looks. So what we're going to do now, again, is I want to run once. We can probably turn it on. So click run once, and it's going to wait for us. And then we're going to run the macro here, running it, and take a look at this. It should be a message box that we got coming up. Here we go. True, 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 true. That's what I want. And the last one false. Perfect. So all I want to do now at this point is take those true, 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 and then the last one false, and then put them into the fields. That's exactly what we want. Okay, so we know our scenario is working properly, just the way we want it. So all I need to do is turn it on, and we're good to go. So activate that. So make sure you turn it on. Now it's ready to go. We've got a name. Everything is just fine the way we want it in here. So we're good. Okay, so but now back into Excel. Now what I want, I've got the information that I want, but now I have to parse it, and I also have to just put it in those categories. We can do that with just a little bit of an array and using the split function. So how are we going to do that? So what we can do is we can call this the results equal split. And what are we going to split? We're going to split that string response, and we're going to split it by the comma. Remember, we've delimited it by the comma. So comma is what we're going to split. That's going to split it into 5 different parts. Once we have those 5 parts, we can then loop through them. So we can do, and if there's an error, for some reason, if there's an error, we need to do on error, go to next. So on error, let's do go to, and then perhaps next email, in case there's an error. We don't want, so the next, will go next email, and then colon, okay, if there's an error. So because if there's missing email or something, it could recreate an error or incorrect email, so we want to keep that there. Okay, so now what we want to do is simply loop through those results now that we've provided the split column. So we can do that for, we'll go let's say response item. This is actually a variable, long variable here. Remember, response item is long, so we're going to do that, but we're going to start out with 0. Why? Because in an array, they start out with 0. 0, we have 5 of them, so 0 to 4. So next for response equals, don't forget the equals, Randy, equals, okay, now we got it. Okay, so next response item. Okay, so now inside here, basically I want to go through each of those 5 pieces and place them properly. So where do I want to place them? Well, if we take a look here, let's take a look at where we want to place them. I want to place them obviously in the email row. Remember, we're looping through email rows. We're only focused on 4, but basically I want to go in this column, this column, this column. What column is this? This is column C, column 3, right? Column 3, 4, 5. So if I'm on 0 and I want to place it in column 3, all I need to do is add 4. What do I mean by that? I'm starting out with 0, right? We're going to loop through all 5, right? But I don't want it 0. I want to put it inside column equals, right? Column 3. I want to put it in column 3. So how are we going to get from 0 to 3? We add 4 to do 3 to do that. So, okay, so here we go. We're going to do just that right now. So let's write that up. Dot cells, right? We're using cells because in this case, for this particular sheet, both the row and the column are in variables. So what is the row? Of course, it's email row. We have that already. And what is the column? The column is the response item. And we know that starts at 0, right? So how are we going to get that into column 3? We are simply going to add 3 plus 3. Dot value equals what? Equals the results, right? We have the results, but which one? The results, the response item. So that's in the array, response item. So basically what this is going to do is going to loop through. This particular is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So remember 4, sorry. So it's going to go from 0 to 4, and that's going to give us the 5 different parts based on that. As we split it, remember we split it, it created 5 individual items, true, 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 false. So it's going to take each one of those individually and place them in the columns. This is the least amount of code that you need. Okay, so great. Let's take a look at that. That's pretty much all we need. So go back here. I'm going to save that, and let's take a look and run it. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. Let's bring it down here so we can see that. And then we'll go ahead and run that macro. We've turned on, we make sure, remember when you're running it, you want to make sure that you've already turned on your either run once or make sure you turn it on, which will keep it on. If it's off, it's just going to be not going to get the right response. So you want to make sure that that is on. So we'll go ahead, let's bring up Excel and then the VBA, and I'm going to run this and we'll take a look. Label not defined under next email. So that should be email, not emails. Okay, that's fine. Run it again. Okay, good. So let's take a look. It's running now. We're going to see our format split in there. Okay, we'll go ahead and run it. Let's take a look at it. Make sure we got that right. Header, H-E-D, header. That's not going to help us. Okay, spell that right. Make sure I spelled it right up here too. Header. Okay, good. All right, continue on. Take a look. Okay, now we got the true. Now we got it perfect. Okay, that's just the way I want it. All I need to do again is just take this off, right? So now it is going to go to the last row. We'll go ahead and run that again. And perfect. Now we see, now we've get no response. That's exactly because this is an incorrect. Notice this is an incorrect email address. I wanted to make sure, and it is correct. Okay, excellent. So it's looking perfect. Free, false, good, true. Okay, that's great. Awesome. So now we know how to verify emails, but how do we do it on websites? I'm going to show you that. That's really much easier. So we're going to go through that very, very similar. So let's go ahead and write a macro for just that. Okay. All we need to do is pretty much copy the most part of the macro and then make some changes. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this macro that we just created, save a little bit of time, and I'm going to paste it down here. And of course, this one's going to be called check websites. So that's what we're going to do. Call this check websites. And we'll just change a few variables. So again, we have, instead of with emails, we've got websites. So that's the sheet name, websites. We also, let's take a look here inside our websites. Again, we want to make sure that we have, again, a specific webhook and a specific API key for this. Of course, we need to build that webhook now. So that's just what we're going to do inside that. So let's get that webhook now while we're in it. So again, I'm going to go back into scenarios here. I'm going to create a brand new scenario. It's going to look very, very similar. So again, I'm going to type in webhook. I'm going to select webhook. I'm going to type in JSON. I'm going to select JSON, JSON. And then what we're going to do is we're going to continue. Okay, this one I'm going to call this called website data. Let's just call this something different. Make sure we give it a different name. Website data. That's what I want for the website data. And again, we're going to start out with a webhook. So we're going to start out, click that webhook, a custom webhook. And it is this webhook. Let's just call this site data or website data, anything you want. Website data. I've already got one there. Let's see, data, let's call it 1 so we get a different one just in case I don't want to keep the same one. Any name will be fine. Now we've got another webhook, so I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. I'm going to take that, I'm going to place it directly inside here, inside our webhook area, inside right here. Okay, so we've got that. Now we've got a webhook in here. This is going to be, of course, the API key is the same. Okay, so we've got that in there, saving our work here. And what do I want? The information. So let's take a look at some of the information that we want from it. So we're going to bring in this. We've got our API key. We've got everything we need. And so why don't we just check it? So let's run this. Let's go back in there and start working on this particular macro so we can run this. So we've got the webhook. That's going to be an I4. That's the same. We're not going to have last email row, so that's not going to be it. So let's change this. I'm going to just copy this. I'm going to use a find and replace. I'm going to do Control F. What that's going to do is going to bring up the find and replace here. So find it. Let's go back here. And we don't need that here. So right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for anywhere that says email. And I'm going to replace it with site inside this macro, only on the selected. Okay, so I'm going to replace all. Okay, 15. So that's going to be better. So now we've got that. We can continue on. Now let's just check. So we've got API last site row. Make sure that we have that as a variable here. We've got site row, last site row, site column, and site row. That's what I want to make sure that those variables. We'll go through these to make sure. The site, and we're going to call this actually domain. So let's call this domain. Domain is going to be located where are we going to pull the domain from? We're going to be pulling it from column A in this case, column A. So we want to make sure that's column A. The URL, what is the URL? I want to make sure we update the URL. The URL is going to be here. So this is the URL. right up until the key. So here's what I want to copy. That's the URL for the website. Remember, it's website context that we're going to be scraping. So that's what we want to do. So that's the URL. I'm going to paste that in here right up until the API key right there. So we've got that there here. Okay, perfect. And then we have the API key that's going to be based on I5. We have the site address. I'm going to call that. That's fine. We can call this domain. This is the label that we're going to assign. Domain. And then, of course, we want it's going to equal the domain. Domain is our variable for that. Remember, that's the one, that's the string variable that we've defined up here called domain right here. So we've got the domain here. Now let's see, now let's continue on. HTTP open get URL, that's going to be fine. Set request header, content type JSON, that'll be fine. Sending the information, that's fine. JSON response, we've got that. URL, the webhook, right? It's going to be this time, of course, it's going to be the webhook based on I4 of the website, not websites, right? Oh, it is websites. Okay, good. So I got the sheet name right. All right, continuing on. So we've got that. Everything looks good here. Sending it, the response text, the results, we're going to get our results. But in this case, let's take a look at how many results we want. I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 6 results. It's going to start in column 2, so we need to make a few changes with that. Going to be 0 to 5. And then since it's not 54, 5, 0 to 5, because I've got 6 responses here. And what do I want? We're going to pause this out because I don't want to put all this code. So we're going to be, since our first is going to go into column B, our title, I want to put in 2. So 0, which is our first one, plus 2 is 2. That's where we want to put that title. And then the results are going to go in here. Okay, next site row. I think that's going to be good. So let's take a look. Again, I only want to focus on the first one here. So 4, 2, 4. And then I'm going to comment this out. So I just want to focus on the first row while I'm getting my data. And I don't want to, I just want to get the string. I want to send the string response to Integromat. That's the only thing I want to do first. And then we'll parse it. Then we'll get it out. So the first thing I want to do is send that to, I don't want to do this part yet here. I don't want to do this part here. I only want to send it. I'm just going to comment this out right here for now, and then we'll use it in. So basically, we don't want to do this, continue on this. So we need to comment this one out too. It's going to create an error if we do that. So I'm going to save our work. And basically, all we're going to be doing, we've just created, let's go back in here. So basically, it's waiting. It's waiting for us to send it something. So we got to send it something so it doesn't lose its patience, right? We don't want that. So continuing on here. So let's send it out and see if there's any issues with that. Okay, now let's go back in here and wait for it to see if it gets some information. Okay, but I do need to make an update here. Last site row can't be based on B. It's got to be based on A, right? A here. A, that's fine. Okay, so continuing on, let's go ahead and run this and see where we go on this. Okay, so now you see it's successfully determined here. Now it's successfully determined. Okay, so we can click OK. Now we can continue on. So now we can add our parser JSON here. Again, we're going to parse JSON here. We can use the same data structure here. So in this case, we'll just add a new one so you can see. Let's call this site data. And then what I want to do is I want to just click add an item, and then we'll just click here, let's see, called site data again. And then in this case, the text is going to be array, and click OK. That's add enough. That's OK. Save that. Okay, just so let's double check on that. Let's just look at it again so we see it. Editor, site data, its type is array. That's what I want. Okay, good. Give it a name and make sure the type is array. What is the string? Of course, it's the JSON that we just came in. Click OK. And I want to add the response, right? We need the response. Webhooks response. There's going to be no data, right? We don't have anything here yet. Click OK. That's fine. There's nothing here yet. We got to send it, right? We got to send all the information in order to do that. So I'm going to turn this. Let's click run once. We'll click run once. And now what we're going to do is we're going to send the full data. I'm going to run this macro again. Then we're going to watch it here. We're going to see it. So it goes 1, 1, and then 1. Okay, good. So now let's take a look at the output code. We got this incorrect input correct domain name, so we need to fix the domain name. Let's just do that right now. Take a look at the domain name. There we go. I see the issue now. I shouldn't have renamed this. We got to keep this as domain name, right? Domain name. That's what they want to see. They want to see domain name, not domain. So we need to make sure they're looking for that. So we can exit out of there. exit out of there, and then go back and just make sure we put a domain name. That's what the specific format it's looking for. So we need to make sure we keep that. Okay, save our work here. And now let's go ahead and run that again here. Make sure we go back in here, click OK, because it's domain name, right? And then click run once here. Let that run. Go ahead and click on here. Continue on. Now let's take a look at it. Domain name, yeah, keeping that format. In the webhooks that we send to that, we can keep here, we can customize that. So let's take a look at that. That looks good. That's the output that I want. Perfect. And now what we want to do is want to get in here. So now we got to customize it. What do we want to see here? Well, again, just like we did before, let's bring this down. I want to see again 6 things: title, description, country. So let's add those 3 right now: title, description, and country. So we've got the website title here, site. Now keep in mind, I'm going to show you something here. Company name, right? We've got that. Country code, title. Let's click on title again. Description and country. So, but actually there's possibility that there can be a comma inside the description, right? So why don't I change the delimiter here? I'm going to change it to an asterisk, which is less common, okay? Because a comma could be used in the description. So we got title, description. So let's look for the description, and I'm going to put another asterisk, and then we're going to put in the country. So we've got those 3, another asterisk. Let's take a look back in our cell. And so we've got, then I want postal address, phone, and email. Okay, so let's continue with that. Then postal address, if there is one, postal address, asterisk, phone, and then email. It's going to list all the phones, and then email. And where's that email? It is right here. So we have all 6. We have title, description, country code, postal address, phone, and email. And they're all separated by an asterisk. Click OK. All right, and now what we can do is we can turn it on, activate it. Okay, let's close this out so it's clear. Okay, so again, we have everything we need here. We've got all the data coming in, all 6 points. And remember, the only difference is we've got an asterisk this time. So we're going to have to update that code for the delimiter, and that's not going to be a comma. Remember, we used a comma last time. Now what we can do is we can uncomment this out here, and we got to change this delimiter, right? It's now actually an asterisk, okay? So an asterisk, get rid of the comma. Okay, so continuing on, so we got the results. Now it's going to bring our response back inside. It's going to take them, it's going to split them based on the asterisk here, based on the star. Then if on error, go to next site in case there's an error. Again, I want the response item from 0 to 5 because we have 6. It's going to start in column B, so it's going to start in 2 plus 0, which is B. And there we go. Okay, so again, I'm going to save our work. Again, we're only focused on the first row just to make sure it's working. And we've also got this turned on. We want to make sure it is turned on. So let's continue on and see how there's any issues with this. So let's run this, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, last step, don't forget to save it. Make sure you save it here. We got to make sure to do that step. Okay, continuing on, let's go ahead and run this now and see where we are. As it's running, just going to be that first one and see where we come. Okay, great. We've got a title, Excel for Freelancers, description, country. Okay, that's looking very good. Okay, so now all we need to do is modify it, right? We don't want it on just the first row, we want it to the last row. So we're going to remove that temporary, and now we're going to run it for all the ones. It's going to clear all the data out, and then we're going to run it all the way through. Actually, we should clear the data out too. I'm going to add that in. We want to make sure we cleared it C4. Yeah, I want to actually make it B4. I'm going to update that. It should be B4, but otherwise it's looking really good. Okay, there we go. This one doesn't have any data, no problem. YouTube, we got the data. The only thing that I want to do is just update the clear contents. Remember, our clear starts in B, our data starts in B, so we want to clear all that out. So let's update that one to B4, right? Now in this case, B4. Save our work. There we go. Awesome. Now let's just tie it to a button here. So let's do that. So let's go ahead and click Insert. And then what I want to do is just a shape, and then I'll enter a shape here. I'm going to tie that macro to a button, put a nice button. Let's just call it Check Emails. Okay. And then I'll just justify that, drop this down a little bit, and then we'll justify it and in the middle, and then give it some look that would be consistent with the theme of this sheet. And then I'll grab this icon here. I'm just going to steal it. Don't tell anybody I'm taking that icon from there, okay? It's just between you and me. All right, we're going to bring this down here like this, check the emails. I'm going to I'm going to center it. I'm then going to group it. You can give it a name if you want. If you like it, check email group. Then I'm going to sign an email, right-clicking it, sign that macro. We only have 2. This one's going to use you and check email. Click OK. Now what we do is just click here, and it's going to automatically check those emails. Okay, that's working great. Now we're going to do the same thing for website. Okay, I'm going to insert shapes here. Just insert another shape. And also you can always also remove it. You can run an advanced filter and remove any data you don't want. That's another way. Check websites. Okay, bring this out a little bit here so we get everything fit again in the center, and then right justify it, and then give it something that's consistent with the theme here, perhaps this one here. I'm going to borrow this icon here, bring it down here, although it doesn't really look good. It's white on blue, doesn't really good, but don't tell anybody. That doesn't look very good. Now it does it. Why don't we change the color of it? Let's go a light color, right? There we go. That looks better. I like that better. Okay, so check websites. Again, center it, group it, give it a name. Check web group. Okay, good. And assign a macro. Right click. We're almost done. Wow, check websites. Cool. Now we'll just check it again. Clears all the data out appropriately. And then what we're going to do is going to fill it all in. It takes just a moment to do it, but it's worthwhile the wait. All right, awesome. We've had a great training. I hope you have enjoyed this. If you do like these trainings, all I ask is that you just actually click on the subscribe button. Make sure you like and comment below. I've got a 175 workbook zip file you may love. 175 my best workbooks for just $66. I hope you picked that up. Thanks so much. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.